You may know I like to put orchids in glass, but I get a lot of questions because it seems to break all the rules we know about growing orchids. But it doesn't, it just uses it to our advantage. So first thing to remember when growing orchids is that they are epiphytes. That means they grow on the sides of trees. So even in a normal plant pot, they will not be getting the same amount of airflow. A normal pot doesn't even have too much more airflow because it only has a few little drainage holes at the bottom. And when that's sitting on a table, not a lot of air is going to pass through that. So as long as you are draining your orchid, then it'll be getting the same amount of air. But since these do stay wet a little bit longer, we do have to modify it. And one of the biggest rules in growing plants is balance. So when you increase one thing, you have to increase all of the others. So we give these a lot more light and a lot more food than normally. When you first pot one of these up, you may notice that the older leaves start to die and there might be a little bit of root die-off. That is completely normal, it just has to adjust to a new way of living, as it will be getting a much longer wet period and a much longer dry period. I find that these bloom a lot more frequently and grow a lot faster than the normal Phalaenopsis. And that's because the most important thing with orchids is the roots. You have to make sure the roots are happy or else the rest of the plant will not be happy. And keeping them in glass gives it a perfect little greenhouse. Very high humidity, and with the increased sunlight, you get a lot of hot air in the daytime and it cools down a lot during the night. So you also get a very extreme temperature drop for the orchid, which we know also lets them bloom. And with this extreme temperature fluctuation, we get a lot of different air pressure in there. The hot days, those air molecules are really packed together and moving around really rapidly, while at night there are much fewer and they are moving much slower, so we get a lot of different fluctuation in there, which leads to air movement, on a much smaller scale of course. But we also do this normally with our orchids, like in this dendrobium. You may have noticed that it's actually in a glass vase with a pot sitting on top with a little water in the bottom, and that's because it holds in the humidity a lot more, so I don't have to water as much. It's almost like semi-hydro and very similar to these because once again, the drainage holes at the bottom are not providing any airflow. It is only that little ring around the top. But even some of my glass pots do have drainage because I care about the